Recording in progress.
Saya senang berada di sini dengan rekan semua. Terima kasih atas hadirannya. Nama saya konsulat jenderal Marissa. Kantor saya merupakan Australia dan aku dengan bagian. Saya senang sekali berteman dari provinsi Sulawesi, Kalimantan, Papua yang bergabung dalam acara ini. Sebelum kita mulai ini, saya ingin mengapresiasi aktualisasi bulan dalam bahasa Inggris. Cepat ini. Jika rekan ingin memakai aplikasi ini, silakan bahas dari menu aplikasi Zoom. Acara ini bagian dari rangkaian dari waktu atau FSAI yang diselenggarakan di tanggal 14 Juni. Kami ingin berterima kasih pada kita sebagai partner kami dalam pembicaraan hari ini. Baiklah. Pertama-tama saya ingin mengucapkan selamat kepada para pengajar dalam Masterclass hari ini yang semuanya dari live yang merupakan anugerah dari Australia yang terkenal para nasional sebagai beberapa penghargaan. Hadir bersama saya Ibu sebagai CEO dan Ryan sebagai penghargaan. Hadir juga bersama Anita sebagai sahabat luar yang akan menjadi para ini. Bapak Dermawan Juni sebagai perusahaan animasi dari stasiun sekolah konsuler dari yang alumni dari perusahaan besar dan bicara lainnya dari live yaitu tulis sayangnya tidak menghadiri hari ini sedang kena flu. Sebelum kita mulai acara ini, mari kita sama-sama video FSAI 2021.
Anything you want to say to the animals of Sanctuary City?
Yeah, I'm going back to bed.
Seperti yang rekan-rekan saksikan, FSAI merupakan kesempatan bagi masyarakat Indonesia untuk menyaksikan film dari Indonesia. Saya minta maaf, ini saya ada dan saya belum tahu apa yang kenapa itu. Mohon maaf rekan-rekan, mungkin satu menit saya coba untuk perbaikinya.
Oke, semua maaf, saya tidak akan mendengar dengan jelas. Saya harap suara saya jelas, tapi akan mendengar saya juga. Nama saya Luke Brown, saya dari Kedutaan Besar Australia, dan mohon maaf untuk masalah pagi ini dengan audio. Terima kasih telah bergabung dengan kami hari ini. Mungkin satu orang akan memesan kalau akan mendengar saya dengan jelas sebelum saya langsung.
Yes, Pak Luke, your voice is loud and clear. Thank you, Pak. Pak Luke, your voice is loud and clear. Thank you, Pak.
Oke, maaf semua. Saya pikir mungkin lebih baik sekarang. Oke, terima kasih. Mohon maaf untuk masalah sedikit. Seperti yang sudah saya katakan, Australia ada rumah bagi beberapa bakat terbaik dunia di industri film dan animasi kreatif. Jajaran film FSAI tahun ini seperti para ahli yang bergabung sebagai pembicara dalam sesi Masterclass merupakan demonstrasi keunggulan Australia di bidang animasi. Hari ini kita akan mendengar dari pakar film dan animasi Australia, Nadine Bates dan Ryan Greaves, dari perusahaan produksi animasi pemenang bagi penghargaan Like a Photon. Nadine adalah co-founders dan co-CEO Like a Photon Creative. Perusahaan animasi ini mengspesialisasikan diri dalam membuat konten anak-anak termasuk serial original Disney series, Balon Banyak, dan pemenang penghargaan untuk Sesame Street USA. Ryan adalah kepala bagian pengembangan Like a Photo dan co-producer animasi fitur FSAI 2021 Wombat. Ini film yang saya sangat suka. Hari ini mereka akan berbagai proses kreatif dan teknis di balik Wombat dan memberikan tips praktis untuk animator dan para pendongeng masa depan dalam membuat animasi multiverse. Terima kasih Nadine dan Ryan sudah bergabung dengan kami hari ini dan atas dukungannya untuk FSAI 2021. Sahabat FSAI tahun ini adalah Marissa Anita, juga akan bergabung dengan kami hari ini sebagai moderator selama Masterclass ini berlangsung. Marissa bukan hanya sedekar sahabat FSAI, dan dia adalah sahabat dari Kedutaan Besar di Jakarta dan salah satu alumni Australia yang sangat kami banggakan. Marissa belajar tentang jurnalisme di University of Sydney. Saya juga ingin mengucapkan selamat datang dan selamat bergabung kepada semua mahasiswa dan para calon kreator film yang telah hadir bersama kita hari ini, khususnya para mahasiswa dari Bina Nusantara University School of Design. Kami bangga bisa bermitra dengan Universitas Bina Nusantara School of Design untuk Masterclass hari ini. Saya harap Anda menikmati sesi hari ini dan dapat mengambil beberapa kiat baru untuk mengembangkan proyek kreatif Anda berikutnya. Terima kasih dan sampai jumpa.
Halo, masih ada feedback?
Belum, jelas emang.
Oke, hebat. Oke, baik. Saya sangat mohon maaf atas kesalahan tadi. Belum pernah terjadi kepada saya di pakai komputer ini, jadi saya bingung kenapa terjadi tadi. Tapi insya Allah sudah diperbaiki masalahnya. Oke, terima kasih banyak Pak Luke. Selanjutnya, saya ingin mengundang Bapak Dermawan Syamsuddin sebagai Ketua Jurusan Animasi di Universitas Bina Nusantara School of Design untuk memberikan kata sambutan. Silakan, Pak Dermawan.
I check my sounds clear now. Hi. Check.
Yes, Pak, it's clear.
Okay, thank you. Hi.
Yeah.
It's honorable, Mr. Luke Brown, Counselor Media Public Diplomacy, Alumni and Scholarship at the Embassy Australia, Jakarta. Our distinguished speaker, Ms. Christine Solflis, Ms. Nadine Bates, and Mr. Ryan Greaves, participant from Indonesian Film Community, professional Australian, university alumni, and university students. It's a really great pleasure that today we can have this Festival Cinema Australia Indonesia 2021. This year event hosted by Embassy of Australia is truly a melting pot to meet and learn from experts in film and creative art industry, widely opening opportunity for networking and collaboration among everyone gathered here. Speaking on behalf of Binus University, I would like to thanks to Embassy of Australia for offering this opportunity to become the university partner of the FSAI 2021. This is surely a chance to that we will not miss, and that we hope that will bring insight and improvement for everyone joining this event. Since a year ago, Binus University have built close partnership in higher education institution in Australia. We have more than 18 university collaboration in many areas, such as student and faculty exchange, joint research, articulation program, and other joint academic activities. Those collaborations are not possible without the continued support for the Embassy of Australia. And today, of course, occasion is one example of how Embassy of Australia and Binus University work together and support each other. Today, we have to present this with opportunity to learn from prominent figure in media industry, Ms. Christine Solflis, Ms. Nadine Bates, and Mr. Ryan Greaves, who works are widely known not only in Australia, but also worldwide. It's not every day that we can meet them in one session, as that's why please use these sessions to get the much knowledge for them. I'll close my remark by quoting from Mr. Norman McLaren, a Canadian animator, who said that animation is not the art of the drawing that move, but the art of the movement that are drawn. Creating animation content, therefore, should consider these elements where we give life to our object or characters when we successfully create smooth movement from them. So soon we will see our speakers in action. Hope you all can enjoy this masterclass session. Stay healthy, happy, safe, and thank you.
Terima kasih banyak Bapak Dermawan atas kata sambutannya. Seharusnya saya sampai sebelumnya bahwa ini adalah tahun ke-6 dari FSAI, di mana untuk pertama kalinya dalam sejarah penyelenggaraan festival ini diadakan secara virtual untuk memberikan kesempatan kepada para penonton film Indonesia di seluruh Nusantara untuk dapat mengakses film-film terbaik Australia dan Indonesia secara gratis. FSAI 2021 menghadirkan 6 film Australia dan 2 film Indonesia dengan beragam genre film, mulai dari animasi, komedi, hingga horor. Jangan lupa nonton ya. Rekan-rekan, dalam acara ini sesi tanya jawab akan tersedia setelah presentasi dari masing-masing pembicara. Jika rekan-rekan mau bertanya via chat Zoom, juga dipersilakan, bisa dalam bahasa Indonesia maupun bahasa Inggris. Sesaat lagi kita akan bersama-sama mengikuti Masterclass bersama 3 pembicara kita. Untuk itu, saya ingin mengundang moderator untuk diskusi pada hari ini. Dia adalah sahabat FSAI 2021, seorang aktris yang telah mendapatkan pujian, nominasi, dan penghargaan di berbagai film festival, baik lokal maupun internasional. Dia juga sekaligus berkontribusi terhadap dunia jurnalisme. Dia adalah kebanggaan Indonesia dan alumni Australia, Marissa Anita. Halo Marissa, apa kabar? Saya senang sekali Kak Marissa bisa hadir hari ini dalam FSAI 2021 Film Masterclass dengan topik Menciptakan Konten Animasi. Oke, tidak usah berlama-lama. Kak Marissa, silakan mengambil alih diskusi ini. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih banyak. Thank you. Terima kasih banyak, Emma. Langsung saya sambut. Halo teman-teman semua. Terima kasih sudah hadir dalam Masterclass hari ini tentang bagaimana kita bisa menciptakan konten animasi. Kayaknya ini bisa menjadi salah satu referensi atau tempat belajar untuk menyuburkan dunia animasi di Indonesia. Kayaknya kita belum banyak banget ya, karena sayang banget animator-animator kita tuh selama ini berkarya di luar. Nah, sudah saatnya mereka pulang kembali dengan menciptakan industri ini menjadi lebih mantap di dalam negeri. Akan ada 2 ahli hari ini yang akan berbagi ilmu tentang proses kreatif dan juga teknis di balik film fitur animasi terbaru mereka, yaitu Wombat. Mereka juga akan berbagi mengenai tips praktis membuat animasi multiverse bagi para animator dan para pendongeng masa depan. Bersama dengan 2 pembicara kita pagi ini, ada Nadine Bates dan juga Ryan Greaves. Keduanya terlibat langsung dalam film animasi yang lucu dan menyenangkan, Wombat, yeah. Sayangnya Kristen Sublis tidak bisa hadir di kelas ini pagi ini, tapi tidak apa, karena ada co-CEO, co-founder, dan juga Head of Development Like a Photon Creative yang sudah hadir untuk menjawab pertanyaan teman-teman, yakni ada Nadine dan juga Ryan. Mereka ini berdua adalah lulusan universitas-universitas terbaik dan terkemuka di Australia, dari Griffith University, QUT, the University of Queensland, and Australian Film, Television, and Radio School, mengambil jurusan screenwriting, creative writing, production, drama writing, dan juga creative industries. Nadine Bates adalah co-founder dan co-CEO dari Like a Photon Creative. Ini adalah sebuah perusahaan produksi dengan spesialisasi konten anak-anak yang sudah memenangkan begitu banyak penghargaan internasional. Like a Photon Creative ini adalah satu-satunya studio animasi di Australia yang dipimpin perempuan. Nadine saat ini juga duduk di berbagai panel sebagai penasehat industri. Sementara itu, Ryan Greaves adalah Head of Development di Like a Photon Creative. Dia juga merupakan co-producer dan juga Head of Story untuk 3 film animasi 3D yang semuanya dirilis untuk layar lebar, yakni The Wish Mystery, Wombat, dan juga Daisy Quokka, World's Scariest Animal. Ada juga proyek lain yang Ryan kerjakan, Hoagie the Globetrotter untuk Little Critter Workshop yang saat ini teman-teman bisa temukan di Netflix karena memang diputar secara global. Nah, selama mendengarkan para ahli nanti, jika teman-teman ada pertanyaan, silakan langsung dicatat atau diketik di chat box kita. Nanti akan dijawab oleh experts kita di pagi hari ini. Langsung saja kita sapa speakers kita pagi ini. Hello Nadine and Ryan, how are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us this morning to share your knowledge and expertise. We really appreciate both of your time. So maybe I'll start with Nadine first. So Nadine, Like a Photon Creative is the only animated studio in Australia that is fearlessly led by women, by you and your co-founder, Kristen Sublis. So could you share with us what inspired you and Kristen to set up Like a Photon Creative and what made you decide to focus on creating content specifically for children?
Absolutely. First of all, before I start, thank you so much, FSAI, Binnis, and the Australian MC. I really appreciate you letting us come and talk to everybody today. It's a wonderful opportunity. So Kristen and I worked together at a network over here in Australia, and we realised that perhaps there was not enough representation that we would like to see on screen. So there weren't enough female voices being used to create story. There weren't enough positive representations of all kinds of people on screen that we would like to show. So we decided that we'd leave out the safety of our jobs and start our own company, which was terrifying, but 8 years later, very, very worthwhile. And every day brings us a lot of joy and a lot of laughter. But we also realize that we're creating content for an entire generation of people that might not have seen the kind of things that they now get to see. So when people watch, films like Wombat and enjoy them, there's no better feeling than that in the world. So yes, we are the only female-owned and run animation studio in Australia, which seems crazy to me, but hopefully we are the first, not the only, and there will be many more to come.
And also, what made you decide to focus on creating content for children? Because I know that your educational background, you've always focused on writing and creating stories for children. So what's that? What made you decide that?
I actually started my education in political science. And when I realized that I was surrounded by people that didn't necessarily represent the broad spectrum of society that were making decisions about politics, that's when I realized that perhaps I might need to look at a different way of changing the world for the better. So it might not be following the same paths. I might not be a politician, but I might actually be able to create a world that models kindness and tolerance and equality and a global kind of kinship with people that an entire generation could grow up with and change and personify as they get older. So for me, that desire and that drive to write and produce for children has always been about changing the world, making it a little bit better, one film at a time.
So when writing for children, I imagine that is actually very different from writing for adults, right? So what are the differences and what are the do's and don'ts of writing for children?
It's a really good question. And you're right, they're incredibly different. I think there's a perception that people think, oh, writing for children is easier. Like they're dumber. So like you don't have to worry so much about what you say, when in fact the opposite is absolutely true. Like they aren't just small, silly people. They are creations and beings all of their own. And they in fact have a very critical palate. Like you've got to grab a child's imagination and hold them and keep them present. Otherwise they'll wander off and watch something on YouTube. So writing for children is actually, it's actually one of the harder kind of processes to do. So in Like a Photon, we have a couple of rules. One is that you never talk down to them. Like it's never about patronizing them. It's never about, trying to hit them on the head with the lesson. It's about finding the comedy. Yeah. The joke. It's about finding the shared moment of humanity that they might see in the world around them and making sure you build a story around that. And the third thing is to always showcase that kindness and that goodness, even if it's, like I said, you don't hit them on the head with it, but even if the story underneath, that layer underneath, is about actually becoming better people, that's really important to us.
Yeah, I also noticed when I watched Wombat, which I enjoyed very, very much, they were actually, adults can actually relate to some of the characters. For example, the character of Subsisi, who's this PR persona. The way I saw it, I was like, wow, this is how corporations also work. It's like I mean, I know that not all corporations are like that, but some corporations try to change something wholesome and try to sort of jump into the bandwagon of something wholesome and making money out of it. But at the same time, children would be able to relate and understand the story of Wombat. Anyway, I just love that movie. So also Ryan is also part of Like a Photon. So Ryan, making animation film, where should we start? Because my background is actually non-animation film, which is like a dramatic film or comedy or horror. So what is a typical process of making an animated film?
Yeah, well, lovely to be here, like Nadine said. Thank you very much for having us. And I think similar to Nadine, like I came into this industry with a background in live action film, just like you, Marissa. And then we kind of were thrown in the deep end of the world of animation, which is surprisingly and not surprisingly a completely different style of production. So it's really like the key to animation is getting an amazing team around you in each different departments, whether that's like 2D artists or animators or voice artists or lighters or musicians, to really kind of all work together as a perfect team to bring together this vision. Much more than live action, where it's really the director driving the ship. It's like every single person on that crew really contributes to the film and puts their own personal stamp on it. So the film of Wombat, like every single artist we had on our crew, which is all about 80 people, all had a really like direct say in regards to what that film looked like, jokes that were added, design choices of Maggie's costume. It's just, and to be fair, it's the most enjoyable experience to work with that many talented people every day coming into the office and the studio. Is really inspiring to see, the script and like the lines on a page being brought to life and animated and puppeteered by the animators. It's a beautiful kind of industry that I never thought would be such a joy to work in.
Yeah, and you have a little presentation that you can actually show to, that you want to show to our participants, right? Please do.
Yeah, definitely. So I thought like I was going to talk through kind of the production pipeline of Combat Wombat, but I felt it would be much easier to kind of show to the audience how we did it. So I'll just quickly share my screen here. Oops, don't share. Present. Sorry, everybody. So can you see that?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. So like Nadine said, we kind of Nadine and Kristen were approached by Universal Studios to say, hey, we want to make a Marvel Cinematic Universe of Australian animals, like a number of films that can fit into that into a franchise that kind of tells the story of different Australian animals, all based in this one beautiful central place called Sanctuary City, where Maggie is a superhero of, and she protects everybody. She doesn't want to be the superhero, but she's ended up being the right person for the right job. So we were given the gargantuan task of taking kind of Australia's native wildlife, which is all these beautiful creatures here, strange and wonderful creatures, and turning them into superheroes. So wombats, sugar gliders, cassowaries, koalas, and turning them into these animated characters that we ended up here. So there's Maggie and Sweetie and Flightless and Cece, as you mentioned. And to kind of get to this stage was like 2-3 years of really, really hard work and lots of iterations. So kind of the first, I'll run through it as quickly as I can, but the first step we take on that journey is we hire a director and we hire an art director, and they work together to kind of find what these characters look like in 3D. So well, first of all, it's actually in 2D drawings. So it's drawings like this, which is just exploring how you translate a wombat, as you see on the left there, into an animated character that people can fall in love with and feel emotions through. Because wombats are really kind of strange characters. They walk on 4 feet. They have really, really strong butts, which actually we were saying in the last session is we wanted to really kind of take the Australian animal attributes, like the special attributes of each animal, and make that their superpower. And wombats actually, one of their kind of best defense mechanisms is their really strong butt. And so they put their butt in a burrow from a predator, and they're unable to attack the wombat. So we thought that sounds like the most perfect kind of superpower for a middle-aged superhero who's kind of like, she just wants to live her life and go to bed and sleep. Just like a wombat too, they sleep about 12 hours a day. So it was really fun to kind of embody what the wombat traits are into a superhero character. So these are kind of the iterations we go through. This is a long process. Like, we find the facial expressions for Maggie. We work out what her face will look like. We also make great mistakes. Like, look how terrible Maggie looks here on the left. She was too chunky and just really like not really like palatable for audiences. You don't fall in love with her instantly. So eventually we ended up on this Maggie Diggins, or Combat Wombat, and then designed the whole suit again with the art director. And that's kind of the first stage of the animation process. Everything is drawn in Photoshop. Everything's drawn on iPads or Cintiqs that we use. There's a team of about 5 people in the art department, all working together, just designing everything in the world. So I'll show you here, like, we're not just talking what Maggie ends up looking like on screen, but everything in the world. So a crane like this, it was on screen for say 30 seconds. Someone had to design this, and it was meant to be like a giraffe kind of pattern in the background of a shot. This is in the opening. If you have seen the film, this is kind of the finale of the film, which is we kind of plot out the direction of each scene to make sure that everything makes sense, and then we can pass that on down the pipeline, which we call it an animation pipeline because it is literally that. So you take like the art at the start and pass it through each department to get it to the final picture. So we really take a lot of care, and like I was saying earlier, like in live action, you point a camera at something and hope that it's beautifully shot and lit and captured, the sun's in the right spot. With animation, you have to like specifically manipulate every single detail and plan for every single detail. So we have to plan out every single scene like this, work out what's going on in terms of like where Cece was in the finale, where Flightless and Combat were in the finale. Spoilers, apologies, if you haven't seen the film. Here's more designs really quickly, which is kind of Perry's house. If you have seen the film, he's the actor who is taking on many of the roles. These are all designs from our art team to kind of really kind of work out what the world looks like in the film. Sorry about that. That's a horrific costume that Sweetie ends up making. And that actually, just to jump ahead, like that came from the storyboard artists who were working at the same time as the art team. So one of our amazing storyboard artists, Paul Kassab, drew this drawing, and we loved it so much. It's so hideous because Sweetie made it with his bare hands and terrible knitting skills, that he passed it on to the art team and they designed it fully in color and 3D. So that's kind of how it worked. And it's a very kind of collaborative nature of our team. Everyone can hear me still, right? That's all good. I'm not just talking to the abyss.
Yes, absolutely. No. We can definitely hear you.
So this is another one, which is like, we have to do wider looks of what the world looks like too. So this is kind of the main plaza in Sanctuary City that our art director designed. And we play it like a toy set where like you say like, okay, this sequence will happen in here where the waterfall is there. This will happen. This will be where one of the scenes happen. It's just really being big kids, and Nadine knows that too. Like we just kind of spend every day playing with these characters and playing with toys in these play sets that our artists design.
Absolutely.
And then like I was mentioning earlier, like this is when we move on to the storyboarding department. So storyboard takes the script that has been produced by a screenwriter and then just adapts it into pictures. So they use a program called Storyboard Pro, which is a Toon Boom software, and they pretty much just draw every single frame of the film. And then we take it, an editor takes those boards and cuts them together with music, with sound design, with fake voices that are being recorded from our crew. So our director of this film, Ricard Cousseau, he does so many voices in this animatic. We call it an animatic, which is pretty much an edited version of the storyboards with fake voices on. Ricard does almost every single voice in this animatic, except for Maggie, who was at our editor, Michelle. She, like, it's just such a fun time because you can literally record any line and put it over an image and see if that joke works or not. And then it's a very similar to the Pixar process where we cut the reels together. That's what we call this, animatics or reels, and then we screen them to the entire crew. And you can see how the film plays out or the scenes play out and whether a joke is funny or a joke is landing. It's such a fun process because it's also very like demoralizing because you'll be like, this is the funniest joke ever. And then you'll play it to the audience and then no one will laugh. And you're like, cool, we have to go back to the storyboard. So it's like, I think I have a quick sequence here, which is like one of our, this is a sequence in the film, which is the emu character crashing, which is right in the middle when Maggie and Sweetie have just become superheroes. So these are the actual voices by Ed Oxenbould and Deborah Mailman.
Unfortunately, we can't hear. Can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
No, hang on. Maybe Pak Sulis will be able to help. Pak Sulis, is it possible to share also the audio of the clip that Ryan is trying to show?
Hi, Ryan. Can you please try to reshare and click share sound?
Okay.
Yes.
I think it'll be the only time I try and share sound. So I think we'll just not worry about it. But I'll just talk over the top of it. So like I mentioned, like pretty much every single board is drawn by our artists on a Cintiq, and they plot out the scene and the visuals here are just stunning by Paul again. But it really kind of lets you see what a scene is going to look like without having animators take over the characters, or the animation part is the most expensive part by far. Takes people end up doing about 15 seconds per week, and the board artists can produce about 5 minutes per week. So that's kind of the difference in speed there that you get with just 2D drawing. So this is a scene where Sweetie draws Maggie's butt in his comic book, and she's not too impressed about the size of it, which you're about to see now. Yeah. So that's kind of like the first stage. We take those sequences, storyboard them up, and then our director decides and our producers decide, okay, we're going to move this to asset department, which is where everybody pretty much, like, we take the 2D art and turn it into 3D. So this is what we call a turntable of one of our characters. This is one of our two characters. And our 3D artists design every single character you see in the film in 3D. So from all 360-degree angles, just designing them, like using a program called Maya. And also like the texture of the turtle is called Substance Painter. So that's kind of how we build those characters. And then when we're moving them into animation, we do this thing called rigging, which is where you pretty much put a skeleton inside that T-posed body so that when the animators get it, they can move the skeleton around into different body parts. They have lots of different vertices, which means like points that you can move an arm up or a finger. Like every single character in the film has that. it's a time-consuming process, but it means the animators can make the characters do anything they want and come to life. That's little turtle. And then so we also move into this thing called environment design, which is where we take the 2D art and do it in 3D. So this is Fairbanks's office in the film. And this is some of the really, like, this is how early stages of the environments look. Like in the end of the film, this looks really good. But when we first start, you just do kind of weird little green hills that look more like a golf course than Maggie's actual final burrow. So that's kind of the development phase of the environments there. It's a really iterative process, and it's something that is really hard to see what the final film will look like until it's all done. So you just got to trust your artist and your director. So moving on to the next step, this is called layout, which is where you take those models that was that turtle spinning and just put them in the scene, and really block out in really stocky motion what the animation will be. So it's a similar scene to what we saw in storyboard. As you can see, they're super static, moving around. This is pretty much like if you were a parent and you wanted your child to play with a playset, you're putting the toys in the playset for them to play with and then stepping away. And then the animators can come in and play with the toys. So that's the layout department's job. They pretty much put the toys in the playset, which is the environment and the characters here, and then the animators will step in and play with the toys. So here is like the exact same shot, but with animation now added to it, which like now takes a click of a button, or should take a click of a button, but took us 3 or 4 months to actually get this scene finished and polished. So here is it now, proper animation. As you can see, it's not the beautifully ended up lit version of the film at the end. That's because the animators can work so much quicker without all that lighting and the detail of the background, without the textures on the skin. They animate in 24 frames a second, and they do around 480 frames per week. So about 20 seconds all up per week, which when you actually watch that through at the end of the week of your work, it might be a bit demoralizing, but I think a lot of animators who are listening in here know that experience of working your butt off for a week and then only getting 20 seconds of work to show. But yeah, so here, like our animators are just such a wonderful team. Just it's such a joy seeing them bring it to life. And one of the really cool things is they spend a lot of time filming themselves. Like they'll set up a camera in their bedroom or their home office and film themselves acting out the motion from Maggie or Sweetie here, and then they'll put that side by side with their animation and use that footage to kind of help articulate the characters. Animation is really the study of how humans move. So a lot of our animators in the office will be like, oh, that dog runs funny, or that human walks funny. And you're like, as a producer or a creative, you never notice that, but that's what animators are looking at all the time, is like how different things in society move. So it's really them training their brain constantly. And then the last phase of this is the lighting phase, which should click through to here, which is where our lighting team, so we have a lighting and compositing team, put all these lights within the scene in 3D, also in Maya, and that creates this beautiful final image that gets rendered out, which is the exact same animation, just with lights on. And the textures come on the clothes, and Sweetie's glasses get little like lenses over them, so his eyes look bigger. It's such a fantastic moment when the lighting is finished and you can actually see the final image of the film, because you've been watching it in storyboards, layout, animation for 6 months, and then finally you get to see the scene come to life. Yeah, so that's kind of the process there of how we pulled together every single shot of Combat Wombat. Every shot is a mountain we have to climb, and it all comes together into the final film you saw.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So I'm curious, how long did it take for like a Photon Creative and the whole team to finally finish this film from beginning to end?
Okay, it's a crazy time frame for us because we signed with Universal and they needed it by a particular time. So we were doing all 3 films. So there were 3 Tales from Sanctuary City films created at once: The Wish Mystery, Combat Wombat, and Daisy Quokka, World's Scariest Animal. So we delivered all 3 of those films within a year and a half. So it took us somewhere between 6 and 8 months to do the complete thing from script to delivered product. And that's because of incredible staff that we have. People like Ryan, who, you know, none of us had ever started a studio. This was the first thing our studio ever did. So before that, Kristen and I had written and produced for Disney, we'd written and produced for Sesame Street, but we'd always used other studios to be able to do it. This is the first things we ever did. Ryan, you know, Ryan as the co-producer would work with Kristen and I incredibly closely and was essentially in charge of the entire process with us. And as you can see, the love and the talent that he has is what kept everything on the rail. That and the dedication of our animation crew, our director. Perfect. I know it's
crazy, Nadine.
Yes.
3 animated films in 1.5 years.
When you consider that the average Disney film takes somewhere between 3 to 5 years to complete, and they have approximately 3 to 5 times the amount of people working on them than we do, yes, it is crazy.
Oh my goodness. You guys are ready to conquer the world. Seriously, with that speed and that quality. Woo, Hollywood, be careful here. Like a Photon creative is ready to rumble. Oh
Yep.
my goodness. Anyway, Ryan, I just want to confirm. So basically the process, because you explain a lot there, the process to making an animated feature film is basically, of course, the story. The script is number one, right?
Yeah.
So that's the basis of everything. And then secondly, do you create the characters first, or you create the environment first? The world first?
Yeah. So usually you're right, like the script is the most important thing by far. That's kind of like the document that everybody works from to get the final film, every single department. But then when we hand over the script to the team, the characters get designed first. So what do these characters look like? Where do these characters live? And then from there, you're able to kind of design the environments, such as Maggie's house and her burrow, and what type of lifestyle she would live. So again, just like any other story, like the script is most important and then the character's most important. So that's what we want to get right first.
Okay, so you both can probably explain this, because like a Photon creative not only creates the characters, these very memorable characters and very Australian characters, which I just love. You also create a multiverse for your animated character. Could you please explain what a multiverse is and how to create it?
Absolutely. So a multiverse, so when you think of multiverses, most people think of things like Marvel. And so you've got Thor, you've got Iron Man, you've got, you know, Black Panther. So they all sit within what's called the Marvel universe, cinematic universe, which is a multiverse. When we were approached by Universal, they essentially said, could you create a franchise for us in the same kind of scope, obviously without the same budgets, but anyway. So what we did is we created 10 feature films immediately for them. So we plotted out all of the storylines, and we made sure that in those 10 feature films, the stories interwove over and top of each other, and those characters would play in and out of each other's storylines. So Universal then approved essentially the first 10 animated feature films in that franchise. So we created the first 3, and now we're about to create the following 3. So that is the first 6 films in that 10-part feature. However, Kristen Suvlis and I also really love digital, and Like a Photon creates digital products as well. So we've got this digital storytelling app called Kindergo. It's a reading app for children. And so we really love the idea of audiences being able to find content in a million different places. So to be able to read a book about Maggie, to be able to watch a television series about Sweetie, to be able to access the stories that you love in a bunch of other ways. So we created a multiverse that essentially had books. We have games, so Sanctuary City game. We have we have a merchandise. So we've got merchandise on our store so that you can buy, you know, jackets and jumpers and things. And we're working obviously on the following films and on a couple of TV series. So it's overwhelming. The answer is absolutely, it's overwhelming to sit and plot out an entire universe of characters, of storylines, and of how people can access them. But when you love what you do the way that Ryan and I and Kristen do, it is actually the best fun in the world. Ryan said before, you get to walk into the studio every morning and it's like being given a bunch of toys and getting to play with toys all day. Like, it's the best fun ever. So that's what a multiverse is. And we make sure that at Like Photon, we try and create multiverses out of everything we create, because we recognize that some kids won't have access to some channels. They might have access to YouTube, or some kids might love to read, but they don't want to sit and watch an entire film. So we make sure that kids and their families can access our content in any way they would like.
So who are the characters? Oh, before that, Ryan, would you like to add to that?
No, I think it's like beautifully summarized. Like for us, it kind of gives us, just like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like more room to tell more stories about the characters we love, and they can come in and out of those films. So we have like Combat and Sweetie appear in our third film, Daisy Quokka and stuff like that. So using those characters to kind of come in and out of those films just adds this like depth to the world.
So who are these characters? Because so far, for those of you who've actually watched Combat Wombat, we are very familiar with the character of the Combat Wombat herself, Maggie Diggins, and then Sweetie, of course. Oh my God, he's super sweet. And then also Flightless Feather, the Cassowary. So who are the other characters in the other universe?
Ryan, would you like to talk about the first three?
Yeah, definitely. So our first film that we finished was called The Wishmas Tree. It centered around a couple of sister possums, so Australian possums, ringtail possums, who kind of make a fateful wish and have to go on a quest to restore it back. And so there are kind of leading ladies of that, played by Miranda Tapsell and Kate Murphy. And then we also have a frillneck lizard in that called Yara, who appears throughout all three films, who's this kind of like eccentric, crazy lizard. And then for the third film, our leading lady was called Daisy Quokka, who's a little quokka. We're not too sure. So a quokka is in Australia. They live on this little island called Rottnest Island off the coast of Perth in Western Australia. And they're these like they're known as the world's cutest animals because they have the world's biggest smile, and lots of celebrities like to take selfies with them. So we thought that would be the perfect premise to kind of turn into a sports action adventure ninja warrior style film. And she's coached by a saltwater crocodile called Frankie Scales, who is voiced by Sam Neill, who we all know from Jurassic Park and other films. So that was such a joy to work with. We all loved working with Sam. So it's really nice to kind of have that caliber of actors across the three films.
Yeah, speaking of actors, we're beginning to get some questions from our participants as well. But I have one more question. How do you work with voice actors? Because what I notice sometimes in some animated movies, they tend to be larger than life. They almost have to sound, and the intonation that they use is very almost exaggerated. So how do you work with actors or voice actors?
Ryan, you take it because you were in the trenches with them.
Yeah, like I think like first and foremost, our director Ricard Cousseau for these three films, like he's a phenomenal talent in working with voice actors. He's an actor himself, like by trade, and then he moved into directing. So he knows he knows how to get the best performances from actors. He also is very flamboyant himself and loves to do a lot of voices for characters. He plays probably 4 characters in Combat Wombat, including Augustus, the really big cane toad, and also the ibis at the end of the film. So which he will tell you every single time he has a chance. Like I think like one thing we found, you're 100% right, Marissa, is that you really have to be larger than life in those recording booths, because when you can see a person filmed in live action, you can see their mouth moving, you can see their eyes, you can see their hands moving, and kind of gauge the tone of what they're feeling. But when you only have your voice to work with, you really have to exaggerate the intonation and words that you focus on. Like, for example, like when we started recording with Ed Oxenbould, who is amazing, who plays the character of Sweetie, the sugar glider, our first recording day with him, he ended up, he's usually quite an introverted performer, really kind of internal, like a stunning performer in live action films. He did a film called Wildlife with Jake Gyllenhaal that he's amazing in, but he's very kind of insular. And for this, we really had to bring him out of his shell and kind of yell in the booth and scream in the booth. And that's kind of like the Sweetie that we've ended up with, which we love and adore. But it was really a process to kind of show Ed, like, you can be as silly and as loud as you want to be. And I think Ed at the end of it was really proud of the experience compared to the other acting jobs he's done.
Yeah, I was just really impressed by how Ed actually did that character, because I remember, and of course I keep singing that song, that he sang that apparently was improvised, that combat wombat, yeah, la 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 la. It's just so great.
No, Ed made it up all himself. He also does a rap that never made it to the final cut, but maybe we can save that for the sequel.
Yeah, or for the, you know, like for the outtakes, or like the
outtakes,
extras in the DVD or Blu-ray set, or whatever form that we have right now. Yes, and also correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, and also Nadine, working with voice actors, because recently I'm also working with a animated feature film production, and I learned something new, which is, you know, like, even though we're actually acting with our voice, but our movements that we make when we say those lines are actually very useful for the animators later on. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So Ryan will be able to tell you much more about it, but essentially the movement that the actors do really does help us put that more character and that more life into the actual movement of the animated figures. Some of our really beautiful animators used to, and it's my favorite part of the entire process, is watching the animators who go home, film themselves doing the action, and then use that as a reference for how they make the bodies work of the characters. Ryan, I'd love you to talk about that.
No, it's the funnest thing. Like, the animators are pretty secretive with showing us that footage. They don't really like us seeing it, but we always try and sneak in and see their reference footage. It's like a requirement of delivery for us to see it. But like you said, like working with actors like Deborah Mailman and Sam Neill, like they're phenomenal actors who deliver their lines in a very specific way. So we have a GoPro on them during all recordings all the time, that we provide that footage to the animators to use as well, so that they can kind of animate the line delivery from Sam Neill as if Sam Neill is that crocodile.
That's great. All right, now we have some questions from our participants. The first one is from Amel. She is a film enthusiast from Jakarta. She says, bravo, I like this movie's characters. They're very cute and also very attractive, like real animals. So she has two questions. The first one, I wonder what's your process? Hang on. I wonder how is your process to find the idea about creating all those. Okay. So she's basically asking what your process, hang on, how long is it? How many? Okay, they're interesting. Okay, let me just process this, because I'm trying to, it's like Indonesian and English.
Yep.
So the point of this question is, please tell us sorry guys. Please do share with us the process of making this movie, from finding the idea to finding the characters till the end of the process of the film. So the idea, and then the characters, and then the film. Okay. So that's the first question.
And then definitely take the first part, Nadine.
And then the second question from Amel is, how the creator could maintain their independent. Okay. So this is about the battle of the two giants, right? The creator of the animation itself, and also the director. So she basically asked, how far can the creator maintain their independent creativity and idealism making this movie with the director or market preference? If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, go on.
Take question one, pass on to question two to Rhino. So really at the very beginning, what we do is we throw down on a couple of pages, a couple of paragraphs, and we go, got a funny idea. So for example, with Combat Wombat, it was an idea that I brought to the team and went, what if we did a thing about a wombat, but she's a reluctant superhero and she's in her middle ages and she's a bit fat. And basically I based her on me. I like to eat chocolate. I don't like to go out, and I was like, what if I was a superhero at 40 something years of age, and what would that be like? So we laughed about it, because we're like, how many fat middle-aged female superheroes do we know? Not very many, right? So then the entire team sits around and laughs about it, and we get some ideas. We got a team of 10 fantastic screenwriters from Australia in a room. That was when we plotted out all of the films together. So all of us brought in an idea. So for example, an idea that Ryan brought in that room is now going to be one of the films that we do next. So from that room came out the entire 10 feature films. We then have to get them approved from everyone who's involved, so all of our stakeholders, so people like Universal and people like Screen Queensland, who was helping kind of fund some of this, and our global distributors, Oden's Eye Entertainment. When everyone was on the same page and everyone went, yep, they're great, they're the ones we're going to go with, it was all greenlit and funded, and then from there the storyboarding starts, and now I'll pass to Ryan.
And then it's hopefully the same process of what I tried to outline earlier. You know, it's just every day, like creating new scenes, putting them into asset department and bringing them to life. Because that kind of leads perfectly into the next part, which is our director, Ricard, he lets the artists do their work. Like one thing, because every animator takes like a different shot or a different scene, is that Maggie, by the end of the film, needs to be a cohesive character. She needs to act and perform like Combat Wombat through the whole film. And obviously animators are going to bring their own personal stamp to that animation, walk differently, talk differently. But the director's role is really just to steer that ship to make sure Maggie is a cohesive hero throughout the entire film. So we kind of encourage artists to put their personal stamp on their animation. And you never know, like there's so many moments in this film that weren't in the script or weren't like even in the layout or storyboards that animators added to the film that like made it amazing. Oh, so for example, like the whole entire like emu sequence that wasn't in storyboards or the script. That was just created like on the fly by someone being like, what if the emu flew off the screen? And the animator did that, and we all loved it and kind of pivoted towards making that happen. Like one of our storyboard artists, Paul Kassab, he is notorious for sneaking in jokes, and then they usually end up being in the final film. We always kind of say, all of our writers get a little bit like, oh, I wish I was as intelligent as Paul to add that joke into the film. So it's all about as the director would say, like he kind of channels everyone's creative power into making the best film possible. And collaboration is really, like, it sounds like a fake word, but it is the key to making this film as strong as it is.
And I think that it's not just that, sorry, Marissa, it's not just the key to making it as funny as it is, it's also the key to making it on the budgets that we have. Because if everyone wasn't collaborating the same way, then you'd get to the end of a week, you'd see footage that wasn't right, you'd have to scrap it and you'd be back to the start again. So with everybody being in such a small team and collaborating so incredibly closely with each other, and with being supportive and open and like ready to take on other people's ideas, that was the key to get it done on time, to get it done on budget, and to make it as beautiful as it is.
That's also amazing though, Nadine, because you have around 80 animators, right?
80 in the team across all of it. Yeah, absolutely. So some of them are storyboards, some of them are lighting, some of them are animators.
I mean, it's like to find 80 people who share the same vision and to want to work hard together to meet the target. That's crazy, insane. It's almost impossible. I mean, what is the leadership like in like a Photon creative that makes such cooperation and such warm and solid cooperation happen?
Look, that is such a lovely thing to say. Thank you. I think that Kristen and I would be the first ones to say that it's not a top hat leadership structure. It's a non-hierarchical flat structure, and we Ryan has just as much say in the collaborative process as we do, and our director does, and our animators do. So I think that we spent a lot of time choosing people who were great. So there's that very famous saying, don't choose talented a-holes. We made really conscious decisions to not choose those people because they would have derailed the process. And we made sure that when they did join us, we took time to build that as a team. We had funny trivia days, once a week. We went out to dinners together. We played sports together. We did all of those things to make sure we all felt like a team. And most importantly, Ryan and Ricard, they were on the ground every day. They were on the floor with them every day. Everything that happened, they knew.
Yeah, and I think we have, like, in each department we have a head or a supervisor of that department, and they're in charge of kind of keeping the morale high in each of their teams. So it's definitely like a kind of a like Nadine says, it's not like a hierarchical system. It's just like everybody like looking to the person nearest to them and saying, like, let's keep pushing to make this film the best it can be.
Yeah, we were very lucky. Oh, we seem to have a little bit of an internet issue.
Am I back?
Semi?
Hi.
We can hear you. Can't quite.
Can you hear?
Marissa, I think we may have.
Oh, okay, great.
Back.
Welcome back.
We're back. Okay, my is stable again. Yes, I was saying, I think we're with you two, not only that we're learning about how to make great animation content, but we also learn about leadership. And I think this is also a very important aspect when you make an animation movie, because you are actually working with a lot of, and I really hierarchical type of managing or leadership. So satu tips tentunya untuk teman-teman yang lagi bikin film animasi, jadi menjaga hubungan baik dengan satu sama lain, spiritnya itu tetap dijaga agar tetap up dan tetap satu visi, itu juga sangat-sangat penting begitu. Okay, we have another question, guys, from Monica Wijaya from Bina Nusantara University, Jakarta. I want to ask several questions, but before that, I want to give my hats off. Yeah, give you a hats off, I guess, to the Combat Wombat team. Combat Wombat is such a great animation movie. So here are the questions. How do you humanize animals or other stuff? Basically giving them soul that brings the story alive. Is there any characteristics that are needed to create a good humanized character? That's the first one. I'll just let you answer that first one for now.
It's really funny. I had no idea how terrifying it would be to make anthropomorphized animals. So to try and create animals that walked on their hind legs and still had the structure of the animal so people could recognize what they were when they were walking, but that were functional and looked like semi kind of human-esque is really complex. So anything with huge feet is a big no-no because it becomes too difficult for them to walk and rig properly. Anything that doesn't have a spine, so snakes are very difficult to do. Ryan, what else would you add in?
Yeah, I think like the two things that our animators constantly asked for was really like clear and obvious eyes and eyebrows, which, like, for me coming new to the game, I was like, why the eyebrows? Like, who cares about the eyebrows? But they said like that really is like, they say the eyes are the window to the soul and the eyebrows are the information to tell you what they're feeling. So like even now you can see my eyebrows doing their business to tell you how I'm feeling. I'm enjoying myself here. But like it's amazing to see the different like range of emotions our animators can achieve by just moving eyebrows around. And Marissa, you know, as an actress, that your eyebrows are very important to you as well.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you, Ryan. So yeah, eyebrows, yeah, Monica. The movement of the eyebrows can help indicate atau mengungkapkan emosi dari karakter-karakternya. This is still the same question for Monica. She actually has 3 questions. She asked, how does the director manage the team? Does the idea always come from the director, or is there any previous brainstorming session done by the story team? So usually when it comes to film, especially film students, they think about, okay, there's a producer, there's the writer, and there's the director. So yes.
It's a slightly more complicated process with us because they all tend to jumble together. Yeah, the producer and Ryan, Kristen, myself, Ricard, the director, and the heads of animation would spend a lot of time together being the collective creatives, essentially. So we all kind of had a stake in being those creators. Rhino, from your perspective, do you feel like, tell me about what you think about that process, because we would obviously get together, we'd have feedback, we'd get feedback from our stakeholders, and then we'd move back into kind of amending. But how did you find that worked?
Yeah, I think like I'm going to steal Ricard's messages that I've heard from him this week. So for these next 3 films that we're doing, we're actually bringing some of our team up from head positions into directorial roles. So Ricard will be taking on one of the films, but we're promoting one of our lead animators, Tanya Vincent, to a directorial role, and another great director called Chantel Murray. And he's kind of been like coaching them or mentoring them in how to be like directors of animated films. And his main advice was really, it's not your job to create the vision. It's for the artist to create the vision to you, and you just say yes or no, or red or blue, or just kind of like point it in the direction that you see in your head, and be open to those ideas. So it's not this auteur kind of Stanley Kubrick vision of like, this is my movie, go make it. It's very much like the artist being like, what do you think of this? Or option B or A, and he'll be like, I love B with elements of this of A, combine those together, and that's what we're going with. It's very like reactive to the amazing work our artists do, compared to being like, do my work and then I'll approve it, you know?
So micromanaging does not work in making animated movie.
Not at all.
Okay, if there are micromanaging directors out there, think about it again.
Just enjoy the creative process with the most creative people you've ever met. It's such a joy. And I think, and we have management behind the scenes. We have production managers who keep everyone on schedule. You know, those people are magicians, and allow you to be like part of the creative process, so you can do like different versions of scenes.
Yes, this is the 3rd question from Monica. Well, her question is basically, how does local culture impact the movie and the audience? What was the audience's impression of the movie? So basically, adding or elaborating a little from this question is, how important is it to include your local culture in the films that you make?
I would say that it's incredibly important. I think that the more, coming from a producer's perspective first and foremost, as a producer, I'm constantly told from all of the streamers, so, you know, Netflix and what have you overseas, that what they want are local stories told for a global audience. And so people are interested, they want to know what makes it different from being in LA, what makes it different from being in Jakarta, like how is this very specifically Australian. I think, speaking from a creative and from a little girl who grew up never ever seeing on screen her native animals, it was really important for me, because I have children, because I care about the way the future moves. It was really important that we saw those animals, because a lot of them are endangered. So we want there to be an acceptance and acknowledgement. We want them to be able to go, oh, I live where they live. Like, I don't have to go to a magical place to be able to enjoy the creatures around me. They're already here. It's incredibly important. And I would urge anybody watching, any creatives, any students, to not hide where you come from. Embrace it. It's your superpower.
Agree. Ryan, would you like to add to that?
I can't add to that. That was beautifully summarized of why we wanted to make this film.
Yeah, I completely agree. We've actually tried to do that as well in our film industry at the moment. Like, for example, the film that is currently out, the film I'm in, even though the set is mostly New York, but we are very Indonesians. All the characters are super Indonesian. So I guess that is aligned to what Nadine just shared with us just then. So basically, sell your strength to our global audience. This is question number, okay. This is from Naomi. Naomi is from Bina Nusantara University. She asks, why did your team choose to make 3D? Oh, this is basically about the decision to make 2D or 3D.
Rhino, take it away.
Yeah, I think like to be fair, like Pixar has kind of broken the mold. I'd say when Toy Story came out in like the early 90s, and changed audiences around the world's palette towards 3D animation. 2D animation, obviously, during the heyday of Disney was the best. Little Mermaid, Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, that kind of. And then Pixar came along and really changed people's interest to 3D. So we went down that route. It's definitely not cheaper than 2D, so we didn't do it for budget reasons. But it's just the marketplace around the world in different territories prefers the look of 3D animation compared to 2D. We love 2D just as much. We love Wolf Walkers from Cartoon Saloon is amazing, but we've gone the 3D route, and we're constantly pushing the technology to try and get a better 3D look.
Nadine, would you like to add to that?
I think there's a perception in the global marketplace that 3D is more cinematic, that people go to cinemas to watch a 3D film as opposed to a 2D seeming more like something that you'd watch at home or on a streamer. Like Ryan said, there are companies that do 2D that are more cinematic than any 3D I've ever seen, Cartoon Saloon being one of them. They're incredible, their work. But also for us, 3D for me was really important because I loved the facial expressions we could get. I loved the roundedness. I loved the squishiness. I almost wanted everyone to look at them and go, oh, I want to buy a plush toy of a Wombat afterwards.
That's great. Okay. Thank you for that, Nadine and Ryan. Now we have a question from Ivan from Petra Christian University. He asks, from the Combat Wombat's end credit title, I can infer that the size of the production team is relatively small compared to Hollywood studio productions, the size of the team from the Hollywood studio production. How can you achieve this level of quality with just a fraction of the number of talents that Hollywood animation feature usually have? There you go.
It's a really good question. And Ryan, would you like to answer it?
Yeah, I think sure. I think like Kristen, if she was here, she summarized it in a beautiful way, which is our budget for this film was 1/100th of Toy Story 4. So one 1/100th of Toy Story 4. So it's definitely like a much smaller budget than what Pixar and DreamWorks and Disney are working with. But I think like where we hired intelligently was hiring artists who can work across different disciplines, like people who can edit and then move into storyboarding, or people who can like work in 3D and then also do 2D artwork. As you can see from the credits, which someone clearly has, lots of people wore lots of different hats on this film. And so really like we mentioned earlier, like with a team of 80 people across the whole project, from writing to the music and sound design, everybody worked together in many different jobs on this film to finally make it the final product. Everyone working the hardest they can and with the most passion they can.
And when you take that and you have 3 films being done at once, it means that you can provide artists, animators, people with 3 years or 2 years of living in one place and not having to move on and find a different job, which is quite rare, right? So being in the creative industries is a gig economy. You have to move around and find the best job next. But when you can offer people a level of stability for a chunk of time, then you get the best. Like you get really great people wanting to stay. And Brisbane's not a terrible place to live. So people wanted to come and live here.
Of course. So it is important for creative people to be multi-skilled in this day and age. Is that correct?
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. It'll definitely make you more employable.
Okay, it will definitely make you more employable. Tuh guys, jadi ada satu hal yang bisa kita pelajari kalau misalnya kita punya skill lebih dari satu, misalnya nggak gambar doang gitu, nggak gambar 2D doang, tapi bisa juga gambar 3D, dan juga bisa bikin storyboard, atau bahkan kalau misalnya bisa nulis juga, itu akan top banget. Harga jual kalian di pasaran akan semakin tinggi, karena cari orang-orang kayak gini tuh susah gitu. Ketika udah dapat, gampang lah tuh nego gajinya nanti, ya nggak? All right, we have another question from Reza. He's from Jakarta Art Institute. How to combine animated films with reality films such as Tom and Jerry films? You mean like live action? Is Tom and Jerry live action, or was that
Yeah.
Was that Dick Tracy?
Yeah, the new one seems to be live action with 2D animation. Yeah.
Okay, so how do we combine these two styles?
Sure.
We haven't done that, but I think we could. I think we could.
Yeah, like it's a relatively similar process. Obviously, you have to film all the footage first. And so like films like Peter Rabbit, which was also produced down here with Animal Logic in Australia, like they do 3D animation composited into live action footage. So it's definitely a different process to what we did and more time consuming. The nerdy side is you need a lot more compositors. Compositors pretty much take the animation and then make it feel like it's part of the live action world. So when you got Chloe Grace Moretz with Tom and Jerry, that's what they spent all their money on, is making sure Tom and Jerry live in that real world.
Okay, thank you. Question from Winda, Institut Seni Indonesia, Yogyakarta. Oh, ini dari isi ya. She asks, is there any special reason for choosing the color palette in Combat Wombat? Because she sees some neon colors or very bright colors there, especially for the characters. This is very interesting because not many people actually realize how colors can actually help you feel a certain emotion or help to create a certain mood for the character. So please do explain, Ryan and Nadine.
I'll give you one example of color and an argument we had with the distributors about color, and then I'll let Ryan discuss the rest. So the one place I refused to compromise on anything, and our distributors are amazing. Like Odin's Eye, who are our global distributors, are fantastic, and as are Universal, and so they really did let us have a lot of free reign in terms of our creative vision and what we wanted to do. But there was some feedback that they really didn't want Combat Wombat to have a pink superhero costume. They just thought it would like turn the male kind of audiences away from thinking that she was a cool superhero.
She does have a pink color on her costume, right? I remember it's pink and blue and slight yellow.
Yeah, then yellow. And we absolutely dug our heels in and said, absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with wearing pink. It doesn't make you more feminine. It doesn't make you less masculine. It's just a color. Let's embrace it. Let it be as vibrant as we possibly can, and just let audiences love her. So that was the one place I absolutely just went, my foot is down, it's happening.
Good for you, Nadine.
Yeah, I think like the look, the color palette comes directly from our art director. So you'll see on other animated features that happen, the art director is considered a very high crew role within the film. They work very closely with the director every single day. And one of the really cool things that they do first up in the art department is they do this thing called a color script, which is reading the entire script on page. And then they will pretty much draw tiny little thumbnails of the film from begin to end, like the key scenes, and draw the color of each of those scenes and kind of a really quick sketch of how those scenes will feel emotionally. So you can kind of map out the journey of the film color-wise emotionally and see what the palette of your film is going to be. Pixar do that a lot. So if you get like the art of certain movies in Pixar books, like they do these amazing books, the art of Toy Story 4, in the middle, there's always a color script that shows you the journey of the film through color. So it's something we wanted to do ourselves, and it was really valuable for our lighting team.
Wow, that's cool. Oke, itu bisa digarisbawahi ya guys. Ada istilah namanya color script, right, Ryan?
Yep.
Jadi kalian bisa map out. Jadi habis dibaca itu kemudian kalian pikirkan, oh ini color palette pas scene ini tuh emosinya kayak gini tuh, aku mau warnanya apa gitu. This is so fascinating. I love this. I'm getting a lot of new knowledge from you guys. So thank you so much, and I'm sure all the participants do as well. Next question is from David Benjamin from Bunus University. He asks, where did you get the references for the environment? And how did you guys direct the lighting and visual artists to build the whole composition? Is it from full exact detailed description to every single thing, or just basically you give some sort of a briefing and then you just trust the artist to create it?
Ryan, go for it.
Like for us, like we put a lot of control into our storyboard's hands. So a composition of a shot is chosen by the storyboard artist primarily. Sometimes Ricardo, our director, will be like, I want to shoot this scene from the top of the roof or something like that, but it's rare. usually the storyboard artists choose the shot choices and compositions we go with. And then from there, it's kind of, we built Sanctuary City to kind of resemble parts of Australia, used a lot of our natural kind of flora of like gum trees and gum nuts and kind of like frangipanis and stuff like that. And they give such amazing color.
To Australia as well, right?
Yeah. So
interesting. Not only the characters, but also the environment. You make it as local as possible. Okay, go on, Ryan.
Yeah, I think we just felt that would give like a really uniquely Australian look that, again, you don't want to alienate audiences, but we felt it was a very universal thing. And other shows do that too around the world. So we wanted to kind of showcase Australian flora as well as fauna. And the lighting team really kind of take what the storyboard artists do and put the lights in, and then kind of they rearrange plants and trees sometimes to make the shot more aesthetically pleasing. But their kind of main job is to make sure everything looks good in that frame, and the storyboard artists do the rest.
Nadine, anything to add?
I was going to say, what I love and what I don't think I fully comprehended before we started creating animation is that every single thing you see on screen has had to be drawn, rigged, painted, animated. Every single pebble, every single leaf, all of it is a single element that has to be created. And it is like, it's mind-blowing when you watch a film and you recognize that every single thing in every single scene has been created by people.
Wow.
Yeah.
What you just said will definitely, I mean, I'm going to watch Combat Wombat again, and this time I will really appreciate the little details. Yes, and really like drink it in. Okay.
You see Maggie now. No, that's Nadine.
Actually, I wonder if the Australian Embassy can actually give me the Maggie goggle. Can you, ladies?
Live action version of, you want to play it, Marissa?
Yeah, why not? Hello, I'm Maggie Diggins. Combat Wombat. Yeah.
That's perfect. You're in.
Hired.
Thank you. Anyway, okay, let's focus on the question, Marissa. Okay. The next question is from Michelle. Hello, I want to ask you, how did you decide that this concept would be interesting and easy to be perceived by young audiences or children? Okay, so this is basically talking about you can probably go into details even more, Nadine. Writing for children, the language is different, the diction is different, choices of word is different. Even the way you present the characters, the scenes, they're different. So do please go into details.
No, you were doing a good job. Keep going. No, no, you're absolutely right, Marissa. It is about language choice. You're making sure that the language used is language that children would have found before. You're making sure that the way in which the characters interact with each other, look at each other, speak to each other. If there's a fight, making sure that there's a reparation after that fight. It's really quite complex. So I didn't start studying for children, but I then went on to become, I went and did my Bachelor of Drama and then a Bachelor of Education, and now I'm doing my PhD and I've done my Master's in writing content for children on screen. And so all of the research essentially shows that when kids are able to see those kind of positive representations, when kids are able to hear that kind of language, then it all helps towards not only building healthier little individuals, but it builds towards healthier societies. And the long tail research essentially shows that it can even go so far as to helping the GDP of nations when they have representations from such a young age. So, to say that it's important is incredibly, it's an understatement. But most importantly, it's about making sure that it's captivating. Because like I said, young audiences will lose interest super quickly. They will tune out and turn away and want snacks and be cranky. So you have to make sure that it's fast paced, and that pace has to keep up. You can't confuse them in the pace, but you have to take them along for that journey, which I think that Ryan and the storyboard team and the director did really beautifully on this film.
Would you like to add anything, Ryan?
I think Nadine's spot on there. Like kid audiences are the harshest critics by far. They'll just tell you the truth because that's what they're really good at. So yeah, this character sucks, and you're like, cool, this character does suck then, I guess.
Yep.
Hang
But
on, do you have
we
a DVD after you make the movie? Like, for example, the first draft. Do you have FGD with a bunch of children to see how they react? You know, usually, you know, you will be able to see whether your jokes work or not, right? When they sort of like giggle, hee.
We essentially do it with all of the crew's children. We bring them all in for a cruise family session, and the kids, we watch the kids very carefully. We fill them full of junk food, and we sit and watch their reactions, and that's really how we test it. Yeah.
I bet you have Tim Tam on the table.
all the Tim Tams.
Sorry, Ryan.
Fairy bread, anything you want. No, just fairy bread, Tim Tams, anything Australian that's sugar. Like Nadine said, it's a very brutal process having those kids watch the film in the storyboard phase and then knowing that you're going to have to rewrite scenes or reboard scenes because the kids do not like it, which is all part of the process before you kind of finish the film.
What I love is that sometimes after those sessions, they'll walk out going, that character's my favorite. And you're like, that character is like 1 second long. And they're like, it's my favorite. So then you're like, okay, I've got to do more with this character.
That is so sweet. Itu adalah salah satu prosesnya ternyata guys, kalau misalnya menulis gitu. Ya harus anak-anak, kalau misalnya mau ngetes idenya itu berhasil atau enggak, ya harus ditonton sama anak-anak untuk ngeliat, oh yang ini lucu, yang ini enggak, yang ini works, yang ini enggak gitu. Oh, okay, so many questions guys. Let me just see. Right. Ooh, this is a very good one. This is from Basma as Mumtaz. Salute to the Combat Wombat team. Very cool movie. So here's the question. During the production process of Combat Wombat, did the team ever encounter any conflict or disagreements during the, during the decision making of the film? For example, character design or storyline, and if so, you resolve and decide which one to pick without upsetting some of the other members? This is for a little context, Nadine and Ryan. Indonesians are very harmony maintaining, even though I'm Indonesian, but I'm not very harmony maintaining. I just tell the truth assertively. But most Indonesians, very relevant question. How do you keep everybody basically having good relationships so that we can work together to make this movie work?
That's really easy. We'd blame it on me.
Blame.
Yep, the go-to.
Yeah, I'm the scapegoat. So essentially, look, there were very few times when people had decisions that we didn't all come to, weren't there, Ryan? Like, it was so rare.
Yeah, I think like what's important for us is like being really open and honest with one another. You're not giving feedback on that person specifically or personally. It's all about the work that's being created. And so like it's all about like removing yourself from that feedback and not taking it personally. It's all for the benefit of making a better film. So we always try and like hear every opinion in the room. That's something we really pride ourselves on. And then at the end of the day, it's the director's job to kind of make sure everyone feels listened to, but then like chooses a road for the crew to follow.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Focus on what is not quite right yet with the work, but you don't actually point fingers, right? You don't blame the person. Yes, okay. Jadi jangan salahkan. Misalnya ada satu yang bikin animasi atau scene yang kurang pas gitu ya. Jangan salahkan animatornya gitu. Jangan salahkan orangnya, jangan ngata-ngatain orangnya. Bilang aja, hey guys, kayaknya yang ini harus dibikin lebih ini deh. Kenapa? Karena ini gitu. Okay, that's really good. And then question from, okay, this is from Arik Kurnianto from Bunus University. I am so curious about what is the fundamental difference between story and character development in animation movie and live action movie, because I still see in our local animation industry, it seems like live action story treatment or development, he says, Cinetron style or soap opera style is implemented in animation? Is that what you're asking, Ari Cordianto? Basically, he's just asking whether there's a difference between creating live action or creating animated movie. Thank you.
I'm going to say, like, I know that there are technical differences in terms of when we get into the more detailed kind of process, but in the beginning, I think they're the same process. And I think Ryan might agree with me. You come up with a really great story. You get a bunch of people in a room and you pull it apart. And the development process, you know, obviously visually you're kind of focusing on what people will see in terms of animation, but live action, you're also visually kind of like putting yourself in places as well. The focus on character, the focus on plot, the focus on arcs are all the same, whether it's animation or live action. Do you agree, Rhino?
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think, like you were saying earlier about how much work we actually put into the characters of these animated films, like some people look down on animated features as like not like the level of Cannes-winning films of storytelling. And I feel like we put in just as much effort to make character arcs and to make characters feel 3D and holistic. The one best thing on top of that with animation is you get to edit the film before you shoot it. So pretty much what happens there is we take the script, we storyboard it out, and then we get to revise the film in the script using the storyboards. Usually in live action, you'll take the script, think it's good to go, you'll shoot the movie, and then have to edit it all at the end and realize, oh, it's actually a different film or not as good as what I dreamed, where we do that in reverse, where we write the script, edit the film in storyboards, and then we can go, oh, this isn't working or this scene isn't working. Let's like re-edit it before we get to film it, which is the animation side.
Okay, so that's the difference, yeah. Hopefully, Arik, you got your answer from Nadine and also Ryan. This is from Ruby from Institut Teknologi Bandung. It's one of our best universities, actually, ITB. Hello, I have a question. How do you guys find the right people or artists to work on these movies? Was it personal connection? Was it talent scouting? Or was it any other way? Thank you so much. Kudos to the team who worked on Combat Wombat.
Ryan stalks people on LinkedIn.
Or IMDb.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Stalker Ryan, they call me. No, it's not a joke. Yeah, like one thing we take, like Nadine mentioned earlier, we focus a lot on making sure that people's skills are great, but also they're a good human being. So culture is very important here in the company and in the animation teams. So we want everyone to be optimistic, to be joyful, kind of never pessimistic or negative about what we're making. We're making animated films at the end of the day, you know. So when we're interviewing people, once we've seen their skill set, we want to know that's the personality they have. They want to work in a team. They want to like be happy to come to work and collaborate with people. So optimism to me is like the biggest selling point, I would say, for crew. We would rather take an amazing human with good skills than like an a-hole, as Nadine mentioned, with amazing skills.
Yeah. Nadine, would you like to add?
No. Being a great is the best thing on your resume. And it's very hard to show people that you're a good person, but Ryan and Kristen and I and our team are quite, one of our super skills is that when we meet people, we know whether they're good people or not.
Oh, yeah, this is an important point that you've just made when it comes to actually working with other people. Jadi ada satu yang digarisbawahi memang sama Nadine dan juga Ryan. Mereka barusan mengatakan saya lebih baik bekerja sama dengan orang baik yang punya skill daripada orang yang skillnya tinggi banget tapi sangat menyebalkan dan susah untuk diajak kerja sama. So that's another insightful tip. We have another. Oh my God, there are so many. I'm finding it difficult to choose. Oh, there's a comment from Evelyn. She's doing media studies at the moment at Monash University. Woohoo, Monash. She says, I really enjoyed today's masterclass. Very insightful and such an eye-opening session. Thank you. Definitely gonna watch Combat Wombat again on Saturday for an even more fascinating experience than before. I completely agree with you. After having this really rich discussion, when you watch a movie, you kind of see it from a different light, right? I mean, it's like in the beginning you enjoy it, but then the second time you'd be like, oh, I know this one. Oh, I know the backstory of this one. So it's all very exciting. There is a question from Ivan from Petra Christian University. Haha. What about the funding for Sanctuary City movie production? Is it coming from Universal Studios, or is it from the Australian government, or is it independently funded? Basically, this is about funding. How do you guys find the fund?
Sure. And it's a really great question. And to be honest, it's everybody will fund things differently, but the way in which we did it, I'm very happy to be very open about it. So there are two types of distributor that you need to have on board when you're making a film, particularly in Australia, in order to be able to access everything else you need to access. One is a rest of world distributor, so a global distributor, and one is your Australia New Zealand distributor. So Universal was our Australia New Zealand distributor, and Odin's Eye was our global distributor. Together, they both bought a section of the budget, and I'm not going to lie, it's not giant, it's a bit. From there, we had to go out and find the rest. So we have both Screen Australia and Screen Queensland investment in all three of the Tales from Sanctuary City films so far. We also reinvested money from ourselves. So like a Photon, the company put their own love and sweat and hard cash on the table to make the films. So it was seriously a labor of love. And there were times when my mortgage was paying for things, and there was times when Kristen's mortgage was paying for things. But essentially, that's what we did. So we made sure that we had a mix of state, federal, distributor, and our own reinvestment to make the money. Moving forward, we might do things a little bit differently. I don't think I'd like to continue to put my house up. Although a lot of filmmakers do, no judgment, but we found a financier which is really helpful, so they are able to cash flow some of those incentives and like tax rebates that we're able to access to Australia. That being said, I know that globally there are amazing rebates, and we are certainly open to looking at co-production in the future, and we'd love to look at different places around the world that we'd be able to co-produce and to maximize all of our money so that we can all make cool things together.
Wow. Would you like to add to that, Ryan?
No, like Nadine and Kristen were the wizards who pulled all that financing together to make this film what it is. So I'm constantly learning from them about how to finance a film.
Wow, this is amazing. Ya intinya ya guys, kalau misalnya kalian emang bener-bener percaya dengan cerita yang kalian punya itu, pasti kalian akan cari jalan untuk membuat itu happen atau membuat itu terjadi. Banyak banget yang bisa kita pelajari deh dari Nadine dan juga Ryan hari ini. This is our final question. Okay, I think we've got this from the FanForce channel actually. No names, but hi, I'm wondering, does involving children consultant or expert is it necessary to involve children consultant or expert in making animation movies for children or from young audiences, just to make sure that it's child friendly? I have watched some children animations that showed improper attitude. For example, being rude. There are some swear words. There is a furious form of anger. It's a different kind of anger to children's anger, right? Which led me to think that not all animation is child friendly. Maybe it's just culture or age rating, but I'm wondering how does the filming team make sure that their content is child appropriate?
It's a really good question, because you're right. We assume there's this natural assumption that it's animation, therefore it's appropriate for children. But anybody who's seen some of the adult animation that's come out of Hollywood, you'll know very well that that's not the case. So it depends on who your partners are in terms of who are the stakeholders creating the film with you, whether there is a requirement. If you've got a team that's never created for children before, I'm sure that they might say, look, we'd like there to be a script editor who will read what you're creating to make sure it's appropriate for the age range that you're selling it to. And a distributor will say, this is very clearly going to be for 6 to 8-year-olds or for 10 to 12-year-olds, and that will change what you're allowed to have and what you should have in those films. So for example, you know, bonking someone on the head might not be appropriate if it's a 6 to 8, or, you know, it's those kind of things. So whilst there is no kind of like mandate to have one in there, and you certainly don't need to have a qualification per se to be able to write for children, it's about whether or not your stakeholder and your partners will kind of approve what you create and whether they think it'll sell and be appropriate and create a good brand name for them moving forward.
Oh, Nadine, maybe, do you have any books that you can recommend for people who want to learn how to write for children? Because
I
don't think we have any. I don't think we have many people that we can actually go to actually consult how to write for children.
That's really interesting, actually. I don't know if I do have any books. There are the standard really great screenwriting books like Save the Cat and those kind of things, but there are on Sesame Workshop. So because Kristen and I worked with Sesame Street, Sesame Workshop does have a lot of resources. If you jump onto the Sesame Workshop website, you'll be able to find that there's a bunch of really great reading resources on there for people.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to add, Ryan?
No, I think that's really well summarized.
Okay, well, before we close this wonderful masterclass, is there anything else that I haven't asked you guys that you guys want to share with our participants today?
I think I'd like to share that I think it's incredible that we get to do this. I think that I want to make sure that I'm continuing to meet people in the industry in every different country. You know, I want to be able to collaborate with people, and I really appreciate being able to have this conversation with you today, Marissa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nadine. And Ryan?
No, I feel the same way. The questions were fantastic, and it was just really like everyone seems so intelligent and switched on about animation. So it's nice to actually speak about what we've been doing for the past 3 years of our lives, you know, kind of get it out in the public.
Oh no, Marissa's frozen.
Oh, no. I think we're hosting now.
We're definitely hosting. So Ryan, what's on next?
Am I back?
She's back. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Oh no, frozen Ryan.
No, I do have to talk. Marissa is amazing.
Oh, thank goodness, Emma's here. Hi, Emma.
Hey, Emma.
I'm happy to jump in as we seem to have lost Marissa, and I think we're pretty close to wrapping up anyway. Jadi mungkin saya saja yang ambil alih sekarang. Jadi saya ingin menyampaikan terima kasih sebesar-besarnya kepada Ibu Nadine Bates dan Pak Ryan Greaves serta Kak Marissa atas diskusi hari ini yang sangat menarik. Ada banyak sekali pertanyaan yang hebat sekali dari rekan-rekan semua. Jadi terima kasih banyak. Seperti yang sudah dikatakan oleh Kak Marissa, saya juga pasti akan menonton Wombat lagi akhir minggu ini dengan perspektif yang baru setelah diskusi kita dalam Masterclass hari ini. Terima kasih juga sekali lagi kepada Universitas Bina Nusantara School of Design sebagai partner kami atas kerjasama dalam Masterclass yang baru saja kita laksanakan. Acara Masterclass hari ini akan segera selesai, namun rangkaian acara FSAI 2021 masih akan terus berlanjut sampai dengan tanggal 27 Juni, yaitu hari Minggu depan. Seperti yang saya sampaikan sebelumnya, ada 6 film Australia, termasuk Wombat tentu saja, dan 5 film yang lain, dan juga 2 film Indonesia yang bisa disaksikan. Semua film FSAI 2021 tersebut dapat langsung diakses oleh rekan-rekan yang hadir hari ini secara gratis. Jadi tidak usah bayar melalui website FSAI, yaitu www.fsai2021.com. Silakan daftar online dan pilih film yang ingin ditonton. Baiklah, terima kasih banyak rekan-rekan. Sampai bertemu di film screening FSAI 2021 yang akan hadir kembali pada hari Jumat, Sabtu, dan Minggu ini. Selamat siang dan terima kasih sekali lagi atas kehadiran rekan-rekan dalam Masterclass Menciptakan Konten Animasi hari ini. Sampai ketemu.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Nadine. Thank you so much, Ryan, for sharing your expertise. It was so fun. And also,
thank you, Marissa.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Stay healthy, stay safe, everyone.
So good.
Thanks,
Hello,
everyone.
hello.
I think.
Is there anything you want to say to the animals of Sanctuary City?
Yeah, I'm going back to bed.
Am I okay to leave?
Yes, of course, we can. Yeah.
Sorry.
Thanks so much, Ryan.